Welcome everyone to Nomas podcast. I am your host, Angel Houseman. Today it's going to be a very, very different type of episode. Today I decided I'm probably going to be titling this episode like the downfall of Nomas podcast. Reason why it's because from having different type of guests coming over to the podcast to only having Chelo like more often now to finally just being myself, right? So the downfall, like I ran out of guests, right? But the true reality on why this one's going to be a little bit different is because the main purpose of me starting the Nomas podcast channel was because at one point, by the way, I think I was supposed to turn on my light behind me, so just 1 second. There we go, it's on. So when I first started the podcast originally, I used to be a supervisor back in the days, and I used to talk to my crew. I would give them the safety meetings. I would talk in front of them, give them instructions, so on and so forth, and I would get a lot of praise from back in the days. I'm like, oh, Angel, you're so good at talking. You're so good at communicating. I even when at one point I wanted to be a motivational speaker just because I've always wanted to impact somebody in a positive way and change their life in a positive way, right? However, when I started doing podcasts and I started rewatching myself over and over, keep in mind that I do edit a lot of these podcasts myself. Actually, just everything I pretty much edit myself. So a lot of the times I'm watching myself, I'm listening to myself. I'm able to notice a lot of different things about myself, even words that I repeat, words that filler words, like for instance, like, right? Not only myself, but everyone that talks, that speaks. We all use filler words, for instance, like things of that sort. So when I started doing the podcast, I started noticing a lot of these different flaws, you can say. And in a sense, I got humbled. I was like, man, I really, really thought I was this guy that could talk in front of his crew, have a good sense of communication. But just watching myself over and over, I realized I'm not that guy, at least not yet. But so when it comes down to the podcast itself, I feel like having a guest, it's easier to go back and forth on conversations, right? For instance, if I'm mid a sentence, the other guest or the guest can kind of have a feeling on where I'm taking the conversation. And at times they'll jump in and they'll add to the sentence or to the conversation. And let's say if I'm stuck with an idea or a thought, in a sense, it's going back and forth between two different people, so makes it, in a sense, quote unquote, easier, right? So now, going back to my roots on why I wanted to do the podcast is because, the podcast in general is because I wanted to improve on my social skills. I wanted to improve on being on camera. Now, the podcast has helped me so much, and I really, really, truly, if there's any content creators out there or if there's anybody out there that's watching this episode, I truly recommend starting some sort of either podcast or record yourself. Why? Because you're going to learn so much about yourself, right? You're going to notice a lot of different things. Now, when I say that the podcast has helped me out tremendously is because not only am I able to hold on conversations with complete strangers, and I've built a lot of different types of friendships, relationships, so on and so forth. So that's one, right? Which I still need a lot of practice with. Another thing too is that you start noticing the way you smile, the way you look. If you're getting chubbier, the camera's not going to lie and it's going to humble you. So now currently right now, I was debating before I started the podcast whether if I should have a beer or not. Why? Because I was getting a little bit nervous on doing the podcast by myself. So I was going to get a beer, but if you haven't noticed yet, I've actually lost about 20 pounds, 20 pounds since Chelo got pregnant. Sorry, I was making sure that everything was recording. So I gained 20 pounds throughout Chelo's pregnancy, and now finally feel like I'm getting back to myself, being confident again. So yeah, so I decided just to stick with water, just because I feel like, okay, if I get another beer, it's gonna give me if I get a beer, it's gonna give me a little bit more of courage to do the podcast all on my own, right? So I'm like, you know what, stick with water. That way, have an outside source, not necessarily helping me, but kind of bringing down maybe anxiety or whatever. So I'm like, no, just be you. And if you do have that fear or that anxiety of doing this whole episode by yourself, no edit cuts or anything like that, just be you in the moment and don't have anything else influencing you throughout the podcast, right? So sticking with water, I did take a few little notes just because I wanted to make sure that I stay on track for this episode. So drinking water, lost weight. So one of the key things also that I mentioned, I wanted to motivate people throughout my content, which I hope you guys have gotten motivated one way or another by watching the podcast. I've tried to share a lot of my story I do have vlogs when we first built this studio, myself, Chris helped me out, and Chelo's dad, and my suegro, right? We built this from literally from ground up, and we've been able to progress throughout time. Any little mistake, any updates that I've done with the podcast, I try to be as transparent as possible with you guys. So I really, really hope that at least in that sense, I'm motivating but at least maybe something positive you guys have taken from this podcast. So if there's anything, since I'm doing this all by myself, if there's anything that you guys have learned, not necessarily learned something new, but something that you like, something that maybe motivated you from watching the podcast, please drop it in the comment section. I really hope that eventually maybe I can have these type of episodes that it's only me by myself. I don't really want to do just me specifically every single episode, but maybe once a month, maybe twice a month, that I'm able to have somewhat of a conversation and that you guys leave comments down below, and then I can touch base on the next one, so on and so forth, right? I just want to build a community with you guys, whoever has been loyal from the start. So anyways, I wanted to motivate people, and I wanted somebody to take something positive from the podcast. For instance, when it comes down to ayahuasca, I'm a big advocate to plant medicine, and I really hope that you guys have learned anything when it comes down to people sharing their stories through ayahuasca, and just at least open your guys' mind when it comes down to just plant medicine, right? Because unfortunately right now the world is getting quote unquote worse when it comes down to the big pharma and everything being done because of business and money, right? A lot of different things get done because just people are money hungry, and through ayahuasca and plant medicine, I hope that you guys find a little bit of knowledge from back in the days, ancient cultures, and helps you heal in one way or another. So that's my whole intent. So however, I also now taking it back to, aside from motivating people and all that, keep in mind the podcast, it's another form for me to have fun and just enjoy the conversations with multiple different people. So in a sense, because my circle has gotten super, super small. At first, they used to bug me a lot. At times, don't get me wrong, it does get to me that I used to have a lot of friends. I used to know a lot of different people, but now my circle is super, super small. So whenever I do have a guest or even Chelo here on the podcast, it's a form to not having your phone with you and just having that interaction, that 1 hour, an hour and 30 minutes of just two human beings talking and sharing stories. So I do have to have some fun with the podcast, which I love. I truly, truly love this form of content. And hopefully it transmits through the screen to you guys, because I really, really do enjoy this, and I plan on doing this primeramente Dios as much as possible, with God willing, obviously getting the blessing from God to continue going. And obviously, if you guys are watching, that even motivates me even more, right? So now another thing, actually, right before I started the podcast, I was wondering to myself, since I started kind of not second guessing, right? But I'm like, fuck, how am I going to be holding up a conversation with myself? So I decided to pull up the stats on whether people actually fear this conversation and talking, not only in front of a camera, maybe public speaking, which I've done. I've done a few public speaking things through work and other little events here and there, but nothing like it traumatizes me whenever I have to do a speech in front of a group of people and everybody's like quiet. I found some ways that have helped me out, right? And just in case you guys are going through that, in case you guys have to perform or have a conversation in front of people, or a presentation, I should say, is one of the key things that has helped me is make it into a conversation, right? Say, hey, good morning, everyone, right? That way you can get a response back, and at least it kind of breaks that ice, because one of the biggest fears when you go up in front of everyone, everybody blind stares at you, everybody's quiet, silent. And what has helped me is that breaking that ice. Hey, good morning, everyone. And since they feel like that's part of your speech or whatever, a lot of times you're not gonna get a response back. So what I've done, nobody's awake, right? And then everybody's like, they kind of like giggle a little, and they're like, good morning. So it kind of breaks that dead silence, right? So that's helped me. That's one. Another thing too, ask questions to the crowd. Be like, hey, has anybody heard of whatever the topic is you're going to be talking about? And then you can make that person like, okay, so what is it that you've heard, right? And they'll give a response back. And so like, well, actually, you know what? So now it's a conversation rather than just a pure presentation of you, right? So that's helped. Those are two good tips that have helped me break that ice. And another thing that has helped me in the past is just rehearse, right? They say, just like any artist right out there that's going to perform, whenever they go to a new city, a new town, what do? They perform and they practice in that same venue. Not that you can do the same maybe at that office location or wherever you're going to be talking in front of a group of people, but just rehearse, say it out loud, have one or two people watch you and hear you. That way you can get used to saying those same words over and over. When it comes down to when you finally are going to be presenting, then it's almost second nature to yourself and you know what to say. And if you do struggle with a little bit, at least maybe you're going to deviate from your, like the way that you've been saying it because of your nerves, but at least you know how to gather your thoughts and take it to the final step and to your ultimate goal. Similar to what I'm doing right now. I took a few little notes and I honestly didn't know where this conversation was going to lead me to. But I know where I wanted to end up at, right? So actually the goal that, not the goal, but what I looked up is where does public speaking rank in fears? And public speaking is considered one of the most common fears, ranking ahead of death, spiders, and heights. So there's people that will rather die and be in heights. They'll rather do that over public speaking. And it's so crazy to me because it happens to me as well. But we talk on a daily basis. It's so crazy that even though we talk on a daily basis, it's still one of the biggest fears, right? Another stat here that Google mentioned is National Social Anxiety Center. National Institutes of Mental Health. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, 75% of people rank public speaking as their number one fear. So if you have this case of fear of public speaking, you're not alone, but challenge yourself. Do something that you're scared of. For instance, now, I don't know if I mentioned it, but this is something that I was very not afraid of, but I'm like, man, how am I going to be talking to myself, right? So I'm challenging myself right now on doing this solo episode, because it's not the easiest thing to do, just talking to yourself, right? You're so used to talking to someone else. So I'm challenging myself how to become a better speaker, how to communicate, how to hold a conversation with myself, and obviously you guys, whoever's watching. So you guys are going to be my judges out there, and let me know how I did. Don't be too harsh on me, because honestly, and this is another thing too, right? Since this is my first solo episode, if I did horribly, a lot of people hold that, for like, not a grudge, but they hold that into their system that, man, like, I sucked, and they decide to not pursue or not do whatever they wanted to do. Why? Because they get judged on their first performance. So even if your first time, for instance, us, the first podcast, even till now, we're still trying to perfect the way that we deliver this podcast. So I mean, just practice. You're not going to be the perfect. You're never going to have it 100%. Just always trying to improve. We'll take one step ahead of the other one. And like I mentioned on last week's episode, slow and steady wins the race. So, yeah. So I just wanted to mention that. It's something that I do have another caller. I do have a caller lined up right now, like within like 15 minutes. That way I can just ease into the solo episodes. So yeah, so I do have a caller calling in, so I'm excited to have that conversation with him. I wanted to share a quote, something that was brought up by one of the callers, is that at first when I started this podcast was that I did mention that I live my life through quotes, because quotes have helped me out a lot. So I wanted to bring it back to that. Hopefully one of these quotes helps you one way or another. So the quote that I wanted to share this week was, raise your words, not your voice. Here, let me say it again. Raise your words, not your voice. It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder. So if you guys didn't get it, it's raise your words, not your voice. It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder. So what that means, or at least the way that I like to interpret that one, is that a lot of the times when there's arguments or there's people not agreeing on a specific thing, right? What do the people usually do? They start getting angry. They start raising their voice. They start, going back and forth, the thunder, right? But in reality, what you should be learning is to raise your words, right? To communicate better. Because at the end of the day, it's the words, what you're saying, that really matters. It's not the thunder, all that noise, that freaking rampage. All of that is just noise. And at the end of the day, you're not making your point come across, right? So raise your words, right? Once again, quote of the week, raise your words, not your voice. It is rain that grows the flowers, not the thunder. So hopefully that helps you out at one point or another, that whenever somebody starts, getting in some sort of altercation with you, that they start raising their voice. And most of the times we want to match their energy. Try to keep calm, relax, and just raise your words, communicate better, and just compose yourself. So, all right, right before we actually get the guest calling in right now, I wanted to share this story. That quick reminder, we now have a call-in number where you guys can leave us voice messages, video calls. Let us know a story you would want us to share on the podcast, anything you want. The goal is being able to interact with the people that support the channel. Even if you're looking for love, we will find your true love on Nomas podcast. Also, for anyone that is interested on creating your own channel, we have our Amazon storefront linked in the description, where you can find all all the cameras we use, the microphones, the lights, the equipment, where all of our podcasts are recorded to. If you need any help with editing services, we are able to produce your entire podcast, edit your short form content from Instagram Reels, TikToks, etc. You can look at all of our content as reference, and we got you covered. And finally, if you want to support the channel, you can leave us a super thanks down below, which will help us tremendously, and we'll make sure to highlight that comment on the upcoming podcast and give you a shout out. Now back to the podcast. I was listening to this podcast from Annette 69, and what actually caught my attention was that I feel like a lot of different real estate agents don't really bring up to light, or at least it's not very communicated across a lot of the times, was that apparently her and her fiance or husband or boyfriend, they're currently in the process of looking for a new home to rent, right? So when they were looking for different homes, apparently they came across one that it almost seemed too good to be true, right? I think they had a big yard, a few rooms that they liked. They liked the location of the area, so on and so forth. They just seemed like they finally found the place where they were going to be moving into. Even I think her fiance or boyfriend mentioned that, you know what, he was already talking to family members saying that, oh, we're going to be doing this, we're going to be doing carne asadas. And so they were already getting the hopes up. I think at this moment, they were on the phone with the owner of the house. So the owner of the house, just a little background of this, he was supposed to, I don't think he never, so the owner of the house never met up with him. So the way that they actually looked into the house was that they called the owner, hey, we're here in front of the house. He gave them the code to the house. I think they have those locks that have a pin. You enter the pin, and they were doing the tour of the home by themselves, right? So that's the way that they got in. They were looking at the house. That's when the fiance was mentioning, you know what, they really like the house. They feel like they finally found the house that they wanted. And next thing you know, they start knocking on the door, and it turns out that it was another family, right? So I think Annette mentions, hey, you know what, there's other people here. I think they're trying to look at the house. So the owner tells him over the phone, don't open the door. This is your home now. Like, I want to make sure that you get this house. So just ignore them. You got it already. So they're like, okay, well, fine. We got it, right? Next thing you know, another family comes. They knock, and they were trying to come and see the home. And apparently, I think Annette mentions the same thing. Hey, there's another family coming to the house. Should I let them in? And then apparently, I think Annette was on one side of the home while they were looking at it. They were still on the phone with the owner, and then the mom and who was Annette's mom was also there, like looking around the house. But she ended up opening the door for the other families, and they're like, "Oh, I'm here to look at the house. What are you guys doing here?" And they're like, "Well, we're also looking at the house." And they're like, "Well, we're on the phone with the owner." And then she's like, "Well, I'm on the phone with the owner." So it ended up being pretty weird, right? But something that I wanted to mention also, at this point, the owner had already told Annette to send, you know what, we don't do any background checks, we don't do this and that. However, if you guys really want to get this house, just make sure you guys take care of my home, but I will need the deposit of so much money. I think I forgot the amount, but let's say I think it was 10,000, right, for the first month. I don't know the exact amount and number, so let's say 5,000, right? So for the first month's rent, the last month, and then the current monthly rent, something like that, or deposit. So the owner was being pretty persistent to like, hey, send me the money. But next thing you know, what ruined it is that Annette's mom opened the door to the family, to the other two families, and they were being told the same thing. That they had the house already because the owner that they were on the phone had promised them the home, and they were being asked to also send the money. So apparently there was 3 different owners for this house, and everybody was trying to, get this house. So I'm gonna play a little bit of the clip so you guys can get a little bit of more background, and that way you guys can hear from her. But yeah, I think it's pretty crazy, and then I'll mention why I wanted to share this this clip with you guys.
Answer the door, blah blah blah. And I was like, well, my mom are knocking and knocking, and we kind of just heard them kind of like, I don't know, they were just like talking a lot, going to the door to answer it because they kept knocking and knocking and knocking and knocking, and we kind of just heard them kind of like, I don't know, they were just like talking a lot. So my mom answered the door, and while she went to answer the door, I called the guy again, and I was like, hey, there's more people here. And he was like, no, like I told you, don't answer the door, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, my mom already answered it because they keep knocking, you know, like, how are we not going to answer the door? And my mom answered the door, and they were like, oh, we're here to visit, we're here to tour the home or whatever. And my mom was like, well, my daughter's already buying it, like, or she's already renting it out, like she's literally signing papers as we speak. And they were like, well, what do you mean? I'm on the phone with the owner right now. So one of the girls said that, and then the other girl said that she was on the phone with another fucking owner. So as I heard that there was commotion going on, I ended up going because I was like, okay, this kind of seems a little bit fucking weird. And I started to just kind of like click 2 and 2 together. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And my mom actually recorded some of this, so I'll be sure to add the footage.
Okay, they're saying if you can send the code to see if you're the owner so we can see.
Hello, can you hear me?
So right there, they're confronting all the families are meeting up, and everybody has their phones out, and everybody's talking to the different owners.
No one sent money.
That's a scam.
Listen, you know what?
But I tell the guy, I was like, hey, there's 2 other couples here, and they're saying that they're talking to the owner of the home. And
okay, so I think you pretty much got the story, right? The reason why I wanted to share this is because, and hopefully it helps out somebody that's watching this episode, is because there's a lot of scams out there, and I haven't seen anybody else share this type of incidents, that at times when people are renting or are looking for a home now, like I mentioned earlier, not only are you giving the first month's rent, the last month's rent, plus a deposit, and if all of these different families would have done that, it would have been 3 different families that would have gotten scammed, right? So hopefully you guys share this part of the video, or at least have knowledge now that these type of scams are happening, right? They post these different ads on different social media platforms, and because they have access to the code for the pin for people to come and watch or tour the home, a lot of people believe the person through the phone is the owner, but in reality, they're just trying to scam people. So I wanted to share this, that way at least you guys have knowledge on what type of scams are happening out there. And so yeah, hopefully you guys like that little clip, and I'm trying to see if the caller is ready right now. So let's see. If you are someone that's suffering from hair loss, whether you're a man or a woman, there is now SMP, scalp micropigmentation. SMP is a non-surgical cosmetic procedure designed to create the appearance of a closely shaved or buzz hairstyle on the scalp. It can also be used to enhance the density of existing hair by creating the illusion of fuller coverage. Make sure to contact SD Inc. as right now they are currently discounting $500 from your procedure if you mention Nomas podcast. SD Inc., thank you for being a sponsor to the podcast. And if you have a business or would like to sponsor the podcast, feel free to contact us through Nomas podcast on Instagram. Now back to the episode. If you don't mind sharing, how'd you come across the channel, bro?
I came across a channel. I think I was just on YouTube. I'm a big podcast guy.
Okay.
A big. I love podcasts, business, comedy, stuff like that. and your podcast popped up on YouTube. But also, I think I was searching up Daniel Luna, because I always, search up artists that I've liked,
Yeah.
and he was on your episode.
Oh, that's crazy, bro.
Yeah, well, so I basically look up, like, Daniel Luna. He's fucking talented,
Yeah.
So I always wanted to see if he drops any new music and stuff, and then I started watching the podcast, and he was on there, and from then on, I haven't stopped watching it. You have really good content. A lot of people, my perception is, a lot of people don't understand, ayahuasca. They don't understand, how can I put it? Just the spiritual world.
Right.
So it's something new that you're bringing to the table. It's out there, you know what I mean?
Right.
But as Latinos, as Hispanic people, it's very shunned. You know what I mean? They look at it as, oh, it's bad, brujeria, all this crap.
Yeah, you know what's crazy? That every time that they're like that I do mention or I recommend ayahuasca for somebody, let's say for instance, Daniel, right? He's like, güey, no me puedo morir because of that, or nah, that's just crazy. But you know what? That type of mentality, those same people are drinking alcohol like weekend after weekend, and they don't even question that, right? When in reality, anybody can die or pass away because of anything, just driving, just drinking too much, or whatever the case may be. But they find any type of excuse to disregard plant medicine, when on the contrary, plant medicine is healing, bro.
It is.
I think if you don't mind sharing, would you mind sharing your experience with, I think you did mushrooms, right? If you want to share it.
Yeah. I did mushrooms back, I think I was roughly like 22, 23. And basically I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't out there like, oh, I want to try shrooms or stuff like that. The spiritual world has always been something that I've been attracted to. Is, you get signs in life, and if you pay attention closely, you could tell,
Yeah.
Something bigger than us is out there, and it's not only one thing. It's a multi universe. As we're talking right now, you're in San Diego, I'm in the IE. You could take that into consideration and be like, okay, we're in two different universes, right? But we're communicating.
Right.
Some people will get it, some people won't. A lot of people are like, oh, that's weird, this and that, because it's fine. Like, you're not supposed to. It's like sheep, you're not supposed to wake up sheep. You're supposed to wake up lions.
Right. And you know what? And you know what? That's been a big experience with myself. That as soon as I found out about ayahuasca and how so many benefits are to be gathered through doing plant medicine, I wanted to share it with all of my friends. And what I realized is exactly that, bro. I was trying to wake up people that are not ready to be woken up.
Exactly. And you will start meeting people, right, that are awake in that it's more than spiritual, man. It's how can I put it? It was just meant to be, right? It was meant to be for awakening. It was just supposed to be. And we were one of the lucky people to experience it. I haven't experienced ayahuasca. I really want to.
Yeah. Now
that I found out that you have a guy that's from Peru and all of that in San Diego, that makes it even just more fascinating to me.
Right.
But I'll get back to the shrooms, and then I'll get back to ayahuasca.
Okay.
So, shrooms. One of my homies, he hit me up from high school. He said, "Hey, what's up, man? Want to hang out, this and that." And he had, we went to, it was like a beach. It was close. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't even remember where it was. It was just, there was water. Okay.
Okay.
And he had these chocolates, and he got them in LA. He told me from, Shaman.
Okay.
And I guess it was shrooms and everything, but I guess that shaman grinded up also crystals. And he put them in the chocolate. I'm pretty sure it was in heavy quantity, but there was some in there, right?
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to try it out. And I didn't even think about it. It wasn't like, oh man, should I do it? Should I not? I ate the chocolate, bro. I ate it all. It was
Oh
it
shit.
was an eighth. It was an eighth in the chocolate. It was pretty big.
Okay, so let me ask you this: why did he even decide to do it in the first place?
It was a no-brainer to me. It was like I was there already. I go with my feelings, with your intuition.
Okay.
I obviously, like, if I, it's like if your cousin tells you, hey, take this right here, I'm going to be like, what the hell is this? Like.
Right. Yeah.
I knew it was shrooms, and I was curious since a young age. But I watched a video. I said, like, those types of things come to you.
True.
Naturally, they just show up, right?
Right.
When you're prepared or unprepared, who knows? It just came to me. So I said, you know what? The feeling I had wasn't positive, negative. It was no feeling. It was just, I'm gonna eat the chocolate, right?
Right.
So I ate the chocolate. I would say like 30 to 45 minutes. I'm laying on the ground, and boom, I start feeling it. It took me that 30, probably more like 45 minutes. I started feeling it, but it was more of a surreal, like wow, like very peaceful. The water wasn't how we usually see water,
Okay.
It was, I could actually see what the water was made out of and like the movement. There was trees around me, so I could actually see like the tree moving, but it was
almost as if all of your senses were enhanced.
Exactly. Like I can't. It's hard to explain, right? You have to kind of live it.
Right.
That's why it's super hard to explain the process of how you even think.
Yeah.
But I could literally see the formation. What we see normally without any drugs, alcohol, and anything is just superficial.
Right.
We see a light. Oh, it's just a light. But in depth, it's like if you had a microscope.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And you could actually see everything. The movement, the different color. I didn't really smell and all that. It was more visual.
Mm-hmm.
So I was with this friend, and it was a 6 to 7 hour trip, to be honest.
Oh wow! So everything right now that you've mentioned is very similar to ayahuasca. Usually, it takes. I mean, it varies, right? But through ayahuasca, when you initially take the shot, it'll be 30 to 40 minutes, approximately, sometimes an hour for the brew to actually kick in. So you mentioned something similar about shrooms. And then the same thing, the whole ceremony lasts about like 5 to 6 hours. So it's pretty similar, I guess.
Yeah. So I like I said, I really want to try ayahuasca because I want to see the differences, the similarities. But like seeing your podcast kind of rectified a lot of stuff for me because I'm a big believer of whatever you think you get in life, whatever you conceive, you receive.
Right. There's no mistakes, man. I feel like if us communicating right now, it's for a reason. And if the podcast and those specific episodes reached you, then it's for a reason as well.
Exactly. And it's joyful, you feel good because you have to go through like dark moments in order to see the light. You can't see the light if you don't go through dark moments because you won't know the difference. We're very curious as humans, right? So when I tried the shrooms, it just made me just a big believer in life in general. That there's a creator here, but it's not just a simple creator. This life carries a lot of abundance if you want it, carries a lot of bad if you want it. It's whatever you want it to be.
True.
That's why, a lot of pastors, a lot of stuff like that, they only give their point of view, their perception. And a lot of people are followers. I wouldn't consider myself a follower. I like to know the knowledge. I like to know why things happen. When it comes to faith, I just let that be. I think you have your tattoo. Can you remind me what your tattoo says?
So it says walk by faith and not by sight.
Exactly. That's the only way to actually do it, right? To live, not listening to another man give you their perception of what a book says or what life should be.
True.
Right.
Right.
And I just feel strongly about that, and I think more people are awakened to that now. But so I'll get back to the shrooms. Shrooms. So I was with my friend. I would say 45 minutes. I was like really in it.
Okay.
Visually and everything. About an hour into it, I literally look over to my friend, and he literally has eyes all over his head, like literally eyes. Like,
what the heck?
And they're rotating, like if it was like a conveyor.
That's insane.
Yeah, I know, bro.
I feel like I've seen that image before, man.
Yeah, it was crazy, but I also acknowledged it, right? I looked at it, and it was dark, bro. Like it was very dark. Like the energy around him and his being was dark, and I was like, okay. So I literally walk over to the water, like close to it, not all the way, and I'm trying to figure out, like, I'm just trying to get into peace, after seeing that, you kind of freak out. You're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like, what did I just see? From seeing normal things to what we usually just see to seeing a bunch of eyes on a head. Like, come on.
Right.
I think everybody would freak out. So I walk to the water, and I'm just staring at it, and what I hear is, this happens. This is just one life. Like, just enjoy it. This is just, you're only gonna live one life. I was like, what the heck?
So you received that message.
Yes, yeah.
Like,
enjoy this life, because prior to that, I was enjoying life, but not how I'm living it now, and how we're supposed to. We judge ourselves so much, like even about the littlest things, like, oh man, I wish I could make more money. Like, why am I not here? Like, why am I not advancing as fast as others? We compare each other to a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah.
After the shrooms and all that, I kind of just watched my own watch. I don't really see what other people are doing, like, and as in, I'm in my own lane, like tunnel vision.
Right.
Because the shrooms reassured me that I was just in the right path, Happiness is so important in life, but how do you get there? Nobody asks themselves, like, how do you get happy?
Right.
Like, how do you become happiness? Nobody asks that. Like, it just has to be part of your persona, but more than that, you just have to feel it, like really feel it.
Right.
Not every day is gonna be like an amazing day. You're gonna wake up like motivated, positive, but you do become that person through your actions, through the way you treat people, just by observing yourself like a mirror.
Right. And you know what? It's funny that you say that, because earlier on the episode, I was mentioning that one of the main reasons why I wanted to start doing the podcast is because to get better as a person, as an individual, as a man, right? And there's nothing more humbling than putting yourself on screen, talking, the way you look, the way you sound, all these different things. You're going to be judged at. Like, I've been the most vulnerable through podcasts and putting myself out on screen, because there's no hiding there.
Exactly.
So it got to a point also that when it comes down to the editing, I leave all the mistakes in there, bro. I leave all the mistakes, because at the end of the day, I just want to be as organic as possible. And right now that you mentioned that, right, that you live one life, right, that a lot of people start contemplating on doing things because you're judging yourself or comparing yourself to other people. The thing is, that stops the person, the people, from achieving their full potential.
Exactly. That's a good point right there. Their full potential. So you go on TikTok, you go on any social media platform, right? And it's always blame, blame, blame. I've gotten to a point as of, I would say 3-4 years ago, where even if it's not my fault, I blame myself. Not to make me feel bad, right?
Yeah.
Just to take accountability and to grow from just anything. Like every little step that you take is basically growth. But you also have to take accountability. You have to take why you're going through such big emotions and big transitions, because you want it. Because subconsciously you're thinking about it. How can I grow? How can I be better?
Right.
So the universe is going to give you that.
Yeah.
So the good, the bad, the ugly, lo bueno, lo feo, everything.
Yeah, you had also mentioned that you received your spiritual awakening because of mushrooms. Was that
Yes.
it? Was that it because of the message you received, or there was something else?
It was the message, because I know it was God, man.
You know what? It's funny that you say that, right? Because a lot of people say that through these psychedelics, through the plant medicine, through mushrooms, you really connect to the source, to God.
Yes.
And it's funny that you say that right now.
Yeah, and I see. It's okay that nobody understands you. You have to get to a point where it's okay, and you have to love it. Yeah, nobody understands me. Not in a bad way, oh, I'm better than everybody. No, when you truly indulge in yourself, and you're like, man, I created this, or I'm doing this, and you're just focusing on the energy that you're putting out because it's good energy.
Yeah.
Your life is going to transform into something beautiful.
True.
That it just is what it is. And like I said, we're not here to awaken sheep. We're here to awaken the lions, because they need it, and if we're gonna lie to ourselves and we say no, that didn't happen. No, you have to listen to your intuition, to stuff that's around you. This life is not just you're born and then you die. What's up with the in between? In between is growth, learning, mistakes, abundance, being broken, because that just gets you to a different place in life. That's my feel about life.
Yeah. Oh, that's good, man. I'm glad that you have that perspective, and that you were woken up with through mushrooms, and now you're contemplating, or considering, I should say, doing ayahuasca. It's amazing, man. And I know you're very bright. Just for the people that don't know, and eventually I want to have a full podcast with you, because I like your mentality, and also you just broke the 10K on TikTok, and you did it within a matter of days. So that's freaking insane.
Yeah.
So I want to dig a little bit more into your mindset on how you did it, your plan, but hopefully we can have a full-on podcast and just communicate and talk about all those different plans.
Yeah, the plan, to be honest, is to go down there to San Diego and actually have a sit down with you.
Oh man, that'll be amazing, bro.
Yeah, just because as soon as I looked at the podcast,
yeah,
I looked you up. You're an artist, so your mind is different. I've had friends that paint, what are they called? Canvases and all that stuff. One of my friends has a 10-year canvas that he's going to work on for 10 years, You guys think different, and you guys bring a lot of peace into the world. I like music a lot, but it's different when it comes to art and the mural or the canvas or just drawing, right?
Yeah.
Because that takes a lot of patience, takes a lot of just knowledge if you really think about it.
Yeah.
And when it comes to music is more vocal, saying what you feel. I listen to songs that I made, that I recorded down in San Diego, back when I was like 18, 19. Now that I'm 32, I'm like, wow, like I was that person, but now I'm just living what I wanted, what I was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just this podcast is gonna grow. Like Nomas is gonna grow into a platform that not only helps, but I feel guides people. And I love that you're Mexican, bro, because we need more people like that. We're very bright people. We just have no light on us,
Yeah, and you know what's something that right now that you mentioned, and thank you by the way, I appreciate everything you're mentioning right now. But you know what, a lot of the influencers on like the Hispanic community, look at who we have in a sense, quote unquote, being represented through social media platforms, right? Like they put a lot of nonsense out there, and I just don't want to be part of that bunch. Even though at times I do consume that content just for laughs and giggles type of thing, right? But at the end of the day, that's just okay. It's nonsense scrolls, and yeah, you get a laugh or whatever. But there's more to life than that. You should, at the end of the day, you should be dropping something positive to the community, to the audience, to the world in specific, and the next generation.
Exactly. And now that you're a father, it's just going to elevate even more, especially because then you're going to want a good man in your daughter's life. And how are you going to build that, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to learn through mistakes, through just a bunch of stuff. I have a daughter and a son, and it's different. It's just different with a girl and a boy. So I know you have a girl, and I want my daughter to be very picky.
Yeah.
I want her to choose wisely, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think about, like, how am I going to influence even 5 people, 10 people to think a little more than in the box?
Yeah.
Because everybody just thinks one mentality, I'm going to be let's just talk about jobs. I want to be in construction. Why not say I'm going to be the owner of the next upcoming business?
Yeah.
Why not say I'm going to be, a lawyer or, just something greater in life. And I'm not saying that being in construction, being all this is bad, but that's all we are taught.
Yeah.
By cousins, uncles that aren't where we want to be. I look at people that aren't rich. I look at people that are wealthy, that have a good, life balance, have good relationships. And how do you get to that point? By just being that person, becoming that person.
Yeah, like they say, be the example you want to see in the world, right?
Exactly, and it's a tough job because we're never going to stop judging, ourselves.
Yeah.
But it's good judging, like, stop lying to yourself. Like, look at yourself in the mirror for once. Like, what do you want out of life? Like, if you don't want anything, then don't bring negativity to the world. If you want to bring something positive, do something positive. Like, and that's that's it in life. Like, there's negative and positive. There's nothing else. There's no in between. Black and white. That's how I think.
Yeah.
So,
well,
it's just amazing.
Well, thank you, brother. Appreciate you calling in, and let's plan it out. Hopefully, you're able to make it down to San Diego hopefully soon, and that way we can have maybe we can just do the in-person podcast instead.
Yeah, that would be great. I really appreciate you, man. Keep doing your thing, and like I said, Nomas is gonna change mindsets, and I know that's your hope.
Thank you so much, bro. That truly means a lot, and let's stay in touch, bro, and to much success to you.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good night, bro.
All right, you too. Bye. Oh man, and with that with that call, we're gonna wrap up this episode. I feel like a lot of what he was mentioning right now, it kind of tied back to the whole reason why it's crazy how that works, right? His conversation right now ties to the beginning of the podcast mentioning how you want to challenge yourself, how you don't want to you don't want other people to stop you from being the best version of yourself, right? Because you're going to be criticized, so on and so forth. I think at the beginning, I also mentioned that I've been the most vulnerable through the podcast, because not only that I used to wear hats all the time, which I still kind of do right now. But being with the podcast, I was able to be transparent with you guys. I took off my hat, which to me, it means a lot. And I even shared that I have S&P, which for me, it was a big deal. It still is, right? Like, for the people that watch this podcast fully and you guys have been part of this journey, then you guys understand it. But then there's a lot of people still that I don't know, that they might, I don't know. It just, it's still a part of me of insecurity, but now I feel like a lot more lighter that I can share it with you guys. So I want to say thank you for allowing me to be transparent with not only my content, myself, my journey, but just throughout this through this podcast. So thank you for that. So yeah, we're gonna wrap this up. This is my first solo episode. Of course, we had this call in right now. But yeah, let me see if I have a quick viral video of the week. Maybe I can share as well, and we'll wrap it up. All right, so this is just the viral video of the week that I'm picking, just kind of a little bit random. So yeah, let's do it. It's just a message to leave you guys with, right? So I'll play it right now.
Will you be sad if you die, you think?
I think I'll be dead, bro.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'd be sad if you died.
Oh, thank you. I'd be sad if you died, too.
Thanks, man. I would be...
Do you worry about the end of your life?
Yeah, I worry about it in the sense it makes me really wonder then what does my time mean?
What does your time mean? Like, what's important to you in this life right now?
I think probably just feeling more okay with myself, probably. And trying to maybe help other people.
Being more okay with yourself. Like, what bothers you about yourself?
I just wish I just felt more comfortable in my own skin a lot of times, you know, because I feel like I would be able to be more effective as a person. Will you be sad if you die?
You know, it's crazy that I chose this clip just randomly right now, right? I had watched it before, obviously, right? But it's crazy, right? Like, I feel like everything just tied up at the end of the day, right? That, like Theo Von mentioned right now, that he just wants to feel more comfortable with his own skin. And I had just mentioned right now that I'm learning to be okay with my flaws. You see, I just messed up right now, right? I'm learning to be okay with my flaws. I can't speak. I'm learning to be okay with my flaws. I'm going to leave all these mistakes, by the way. But I'm also learning to, you know what, to be okay if I'm not the best of something. But I'm always trying to progress with something. And then something else that he mentioned right now is that he wonders how he's going to feel if he dies, and what like the whole purpose of his life is, right? And it's gotten me thinking right now, and that's why I want to provide a more meaningful podcast, and why the reason at the beginning of the podcast I mentioned that I just want to do something positive for people. And if I'm able to be, because of this episode or other episodes, to encourage people to try to be the best version of themselves by making mistakes, because through mistakes, through failure comes success. It's just a part of life. So don't stop yourself because you want to impress people. You feel like you're not good enough. Nobody's good enough. And that's okay. That's okay. We're all making mistakes. There's another good quote out there that they say, the man that never made a mistake never tried anything new, right? Because if you know somebody that's super good at something, that means that they're only doing this specific thing. But if they were to try to deviate and go try something new, guess what? They're going to be making a lot of mistakes. So the man that never made a mistake, never tried anything new. So go out there, make mistakes, learn. It's a part of our journey as human beings. And with that being said, my name is Angel Houseman once again. Thank you for tuning in. If you made it to this very, very last point of the podcast, not only do I want you guys to leave this emoji that I'm going to mention, but I just want to thank you for being part of this journey. So thank you. Let's leave the praying hands, man. Let's leave the praying hands and let me know something that you've liked through the content that I've put out there. And let me know how you guys feel about solo episodes. If you feel like I should do them more often, maybe I shouldn't, what I could do to progress. Maybe you guys leave questions and then I can answer them for the solo episodes. But hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for being part of me. Thank you for being part of this solo episode. And at the end of the day, it's a conversation between yourself and myself. So thank you. Till next time.
Hoy no más.